Thank you, Ian Morris from Threerooms Design Branding. Before we start, can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself and your company?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Ian, I'm Managing Director of Threerooms. We're a branding and web agency. We're based in Nottingham. Originally, being MD now, that's not where I come from. Originally I was a trained sort of graphic designer. Having worked my way up through a series of different businesses, I decided to start out by myself. So I'm owner-manager of this business, and it's doing well. We do some exciting stuff. So we get involved in all sorts of different projects, from sort of creating brand new companies in terms of the brand and visual identity that surrounds them, to sort of working on established businesses and creating sort of web environments for their customers to interact with, that sort of thing. It's quite broad in terms of the scope of what we do. So. Excellent.
Any examples of brands that you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, we've worked on lots of different types of brands. We don't sort of pigeonhole ourselves in terms of the type of niche of business that we work with, but just to name a few, we've worked with and are currently working with Jägermeister, a lot of their UK sort of operations, and especially sort of the music side of their business. We've recently done a project for the BBC, and we're currently working on some packaging for Holland & Barrett, their sort of sports range, which is really, really interesting. So lots of varied types of work.
Excellent. But let's just turn to branding itself. What would you say, how would you define a brand?
A brand's a tricky beast, I think, in many ways. I mean, there's lots of sort of formulaic ways of defining a brand. I mean, a brand can, in these days, can be many, many, many different things, all different types of things. Traditionally, it was just a mark that established quality. So when you were looking, for a particular product that had a stamp, a literal brand on it that said this is by this manufacturer and therefore has the qualities that are applied to that manufacturer, so can be trusted. It's like a trust mark, a brand in that sense. But by today's standards, I think it means much more. And many people think a brand is a logo. It's not that. Just that, it is one of the facets, but it's also the visual identity and the look and feel of that brand, and everything that it kind of puts out there in terms of communication material. That is also the brand, but also the way that company communicates, the way the people that it employs talks to its customers, the outfits, the staff wear, the uniforms. That's all part of the brand, and even the way that a member of staff might greet a customer, the language they use, that's also part of the brand. Is it informal? Is it formal? So it's many, many different things now, which all come together to form the brand. So it's quite complex these days, I think.
Excellent. You did say a few things like trust and obviously creating value. Do you see that as part of every brand out there?
Yeah. I think the job of a brand in a business is to do, it's quite a difficult and complex one these days. But yeah, I mean, every business, as far as I know, wants to be trusted in what they do. Otherwise, you look like a sort of, a sort of cheap trick in the marketplace. You want to be a trusted brand. Your product or service wants to be the best or perceived as the leader. So trust is a big thing, and that's why I think in terms of sort of bootleg products, it's so important that they get crushed instantly, because they are devaluing that brand. So let's say Samsung, they put a TV out there, it's really good in terms of its competitor position, but someone puts a fake out there or something, then it just really instantly devalues that product, because it's not the standard that they want to aim to. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
If we think about branding from two different perspectives now, firstly the consumers and then the company, what are the benefits for branding from a customer perspective, would you say?
I think customers are sort of passive players in many ways, although they don't realise they are. And they take a lot of decisions and make a lot of decisions and take a lot of actions sort of passively and not necessarily knowingly all the time. But to them, all they're looking for is that trust, and is that reliable sort of source of whatever it is they were wanting to purchase. So let's say it's a pair of trainers and they see that Nike symbol, they know that it's been researched in a lab, and it's been sort of developed hand in hand with athletes. It's of a good quality. It's fashionable. They instantly know that product stands by those values. So it takes a lot of the sort of the pressures of picking a product out of the equation. So they can take a lot for granted. By picking up a Nike trainer, all that goes for granted, and now all I'm looking at is price and does it fit me. So it's really important for customers, and it plays a big part in their buying decision.
What about from the company or an organisational perspective? What benefits?
Yeah. It's almost the flip side in many ways. So how does a company want to be represented to their customers? And if a company doesn't sort of fulfil its brand and kind of keep an eye on it, for want of a better term, then it can quite easily look sort of disorganised, lack of structure, not sort of coherent to the customer, different messages, different values, different look and feel for the packaging, and it can look disjointed, and that sort of, from a customer's perspective, that trust value kind of gets broken. So it doesn't look coherent, and it doesn't look what I expect as a customer for it to be. So yeah, it's really important that an organisation stays on top of their brand in terms of visual identity, and that it's consistent through everything they do.
Actually, yeah, it's quite interesting. You've got a Threerooms mug there. Is that something that's consistent with your brand?
It is. It's got the right colours, key. The logo's there. It's in the right format. It's not been messed around with. It's on a black mug, which is again part of a sort of message. But I mean, yeah, in simple terms, yes, that's on brand and was approved by me, so it's fine. Yeah.
Was that easy for you from the early days? Did you understand the consistency right from day one?
I think it's quite difficult for a small business to be, look the part, and I think that's but it's actually fairly easy with a little know-how. So for a new startup, for instance, there's just a few small rules that you could follow and actually get out quite a consistent message, which is going to really work well for you. So yeah.
I know for your brand, especially Threerooms, obviously you've got your kind of values, you have your identity.
Yeah.
But from past experience and past knowledge, you try and inject a lot of fun into not only the objects that you kind of send out to clients. Just tell us a bit about a couple of the objects you've sent out in the past campaigns.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, we aren't like a corporate organisation. We're people, and we enjoy what we do, and we like to have a bit of fun from time to time. So, but yeah, every year for Christmas, we try and think of an inventive and interesting sort of gift to send out to customers. So it's not just a bottle of wine or some chocolates. It's something that's got a bit of thought behind it. So, I mean, this one, for example, we had all of our staff, their grannies, sort of. Their grannies knitted these warmers for us. So this one, let's have a look, Knitted with Love by Barbara. So that was it's got a bit of a personal touch, which we thought was quite good. And along with that went a mailer which just showed some pictures of our grands actually knitting the items. So there's a little bit of a personal thing to our customers.
And did you send them out, you say, as well?
Yeah, they went to one of each a different one, and they had buttons on some of them, different colours, stripes, and all sorts of different things. So they were very unique. A different one went out to each of our customers. A different year we sent some fake snow, so you could make up some sort of fake snowman if you fancied. And to decorate your own gingerbread man. So it's all Christmas related, of course, it's that time of year. But it's just like not just a Christmas card. You've got to really try and push yourselves. Being a creative organisation, it's important that we are creative in everything we do as well.
And obviously branding, especially branding research, tends to focus more on the consumer. But obviously recently there's been a move towards thinking about the staff themselves and making sure that the staff are aligned with the values, understand the brand, and live and breathe the brand. Do you agree, or what do you think?
I totally agree, yeah. I mean, a business, and many people will tell you this, a business is its staff. It's not the walls, it's not the the website, it's the people that work in it. So it's really important to kind of understand firstly what your staff think of the business, and then but also communicate to them what your values are as a business, and make sure that they're telling their friends, and it's kind of the message is getting out on a consistent level, who you are. And also your staff can be a really big advocate of your business. They can be real champions of that business, not just employees who are just watching the clock at the end of the day. So getting your staff behind you and being part of that brand is really key.
And what about characteristics of a successful brand? Have you got any tips for budding marketers?
Characteristics of a successful brand. I think you don't have to be a super brand to be a successful brand. I think you have to sort of go beyond what is just a logo and actually really communicate to people, be honest. I think that's quite a key thing, and uphold the values that you stand for, which again is sort of honesty. But if you want to be the best, then you should always be the best. If you want to be the cheapest, but be consistently cheap. That type of thing. So if you want to be the quirky brand, then stand by it and be quirky, and kind of don't let anything get in the way of that. So.
There's a saucy chops barbecue sauce. What's all that about behind you there?
That's a concept for like a new sauce, which is kind of just a bit of a fun sort of sauce brand. So you've got all your kind of your standard sort of Heinz and HP on the market on the shelves, and this has got a bit of a twist. The flavours are a bit of a unique twist and tang, so it needed something which stood off those shelves, which we all know you're fighting for the bio at every point. So it was just, the brief was just to kind of come up with something which stood off the shelf and had a bit of a character behind it, and they literally have characters on, so you can kind of, each one's different.
And has it been successful with its kind of consistency? And
yeah, definitely, yeah. It's iconic as well. We get a lot of good feedback on that particular project. So.
Oh, where's that sold? Is it sold in?
In sort of boutique shops, really. It's quite niche.
High end.
Yeah, it is.
Obviously, if we start thinking about components of brands, intangible and tangible elements. Could you just tell a bit more? Obviously, you discussed the importance of the tangible side, the original kind of branding of products years ago. What about? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
I think the tangible elements have always been there, right from when the first product was sold with a stamp on it, etc. And as we know, they're kind of the solid sort of consistent elements that are visual most often. But in terms of product and things, it's sort of tangible things you can hold. So an Apple iPhone feels a certain way. It feels solid, it feels crisp, and the lines are clean and it's simple. Whereas a sort of maybe an Android phone, a Samsung phone or something is a bit different. It's kind of a bit more not quite as clean lines, but you know by holding that item that tangible item, part of its brand is is from that company. Whereas intangible, it's different. It's a much more sort of, I think, probably a newer beast in terms of branding, and it's kind of evolved as becoming quite a big player. You've got to take note of the intangible aspects of a brand. It can't just be kind of ignored. So it's kind of the sort of the underground of the brand world in many ways. It's the things, and it comes from say PR and activity, and just where brands get involved in certain niche marketplaces. Or I think of maybe Red Bull, and Red Bull sponsor racing. They sponsor sort of extreme sports and sort of guys jumping off cliffs, with just a set of small wings to guide themselves down and a parachute. They really are putting themselves in a position there which sings what they're about, but at the end of the day it's just some sugar in a can. But the non-tangible aspects are about sort of excitement, enjoyment, energy, buzz, it's all that sort of thing, which are just words in many ways. And if to look at a can is not represented at all, the taste doesn't say that, the visual aspect, the logo doesn't say that. But if you say Red Bull, all those intangible elements that I've just mentioned kind of come forward because of who they're associating with. So
branding is turning into more of an experience.
Experience is a good word as well. Yeah. So it's every touch point of that brand or that element or that product. Every touch point, which there could be many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of things. If that is singing from the same hymn sheet, for want of a better term, if that is standing by your brand values and is kind of consistent with your pitch to the market, then you'll do very well.
Excellent. I've got a little quote here from Ambler and Styles, 96. A brand is a cluster of functional and emotional values which promises particular experience. Really, basically building on what we were saying a second ago. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree, or?
I guess I could agree, yes. Say it again, please.
A brand is a cluster of functional and emotional values which promise particular experiences.
Yeah, so I think the key thing there is the promise, and That is absolutely correct, or it should be anyway. Whether it is, it should be. I mean, I suppose they do promise without even delivering. So, yeah, I'm saying that this item, this service, this product is going to do these things for you, the consumer. It's whether it does or it doesn't is kind of the key thing as to whether it's successful. But yeah, I would agree with that.
But if we think about branding theory, obviously you're in the real world, you're a real practitioner of marketing and branding. How important is branding theory to you?
It plays a part. I think it's probably not the sole, kind of element that we're interested in. I mean, a lot of it's probably just part of what we do. Really, we don't sit there studying textbooks in terms of the way brands are applied or how to create a brand. And sometimes the brands that we create go against theory. It's just something different, and it's kind of. But I think when you boil it down, yeah, I guess theory is always there, and it always will be. But day to day, we don't get bogged down in it because it could easily occupy every moment of every day if you're not careful. So.
And your clients themselves, do they always look towards theory as well, or is it more of a, like I say, a practical?
I think with the size of business we work for, I mean, we're not working with global brands. I would imagine at that level, global brands, they've probably got teams enlisted just to look at the sort of theory behind their brand and whether it should be, sort of apple red or plum purple or whatever. The small nuances of the process. The type of people we work for, we tend to, for that example, colour, we pick a colour that we think is going to be best in terms of its place in the competition range. So if there's a competitor who's yellow and one that's green, then we'll find somewhere that gives them standout, and also that we think works with a nice palette that's going to work for them going forward. So we aren't sort of in that competitive area where the very fine details of sort of the theory come into play so much.
Excellent. And just before we finish up, what about any? Do you see any threats for brands? Anything like that? Threats to branding?
Yeah. I guess. The threat to a brand is not performing, the execution correctly and adhering to all the really important parts of a brand. So the key threat to a brand would be to ignore it as an element of the business. So brands are, certainly worth a lot of money. Just the, intangible elements of a brand have a lot of value. So to kind of overlook that and undermine it would be a big mistake to a modern brand. So you've got to be on top of it these days to be a key player in the marketplace.
And you've obviously mentioned staff as well. They're important in delivering the brand, and if they're not on board, that could be a threat.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think more so now than ever that your team are the brand and are a key part of the brand. So should be really behind the business in that respect.
And the future of branding? Any words for the budding marketers of NTU?
I think the future of branding obviously has gone more online. Brands exist online more than ever, and that means in video, in social media, in all manner of different ways. But I think, make a customer or a recipient of the brand, make them happy, make them engaged, make them enjoy it, and you've won half the battle, I think. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time, and I'll hopefully see you again soon at NTU.
Thank you very much.